Good evening, and welcome to the League of Women Voters Candidate Forum for the April 2nd election. Candidates for the Port Edwards Village Trustees will be featured in this portion of tonight's forum. My name is Pat Keir, and I will be the moderator for this segment of the Voters Forum this evening. We are very pleased to bring you this live broadcast on Wisconsin Rapids Community Media Television, and we welcome both our viewing audience and those folks in the studio this evening. The League sincerely thanks the candidates who are here right now for putting themselves out there and being willing to run for public office. I would remind everyone that the League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization and does not support or endorse any particular candidate or political party. The candidates for Port Edwards Village Trustees that are with us this evening, there are four with us, and they are John Bingham, Tiara Grunden, Sue Mitchell, and Betsy Mancl. These four individuals will be vying for 3 open seats. They drew their lots, long straw, short straw, however it may be, for who would begin this evening. Each person will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. They'll have 2 minutes to answer up to 2 minutes to answer each question, and there will be an opportunity for a 2-minute closing statement by each person. Written questions from the studio audience and telephoned-in questions from our viewing audience should be directed to the office and not to a particular candidate. If you are listening to this on the television right now, please know that you can call in your questions to 715-423-0441. That's 423-0441. Only questions pertaining to issues and not personalities shall be asked. Questions will be screened to avoid duplication. With this, we will begin our opening statements. And so, Betsy, we'll start with you, please.
Thank you. My name is Betsy Mancl. I would first like to thank the League of Women Voters for inviting me to be a part of this forum tonight. My family and I lived in Port Edwards for over 3 years. My husband Josh and I chose Port Edwards as the place to raise our children because of the safe, small town atmosphere, and the wonderful community and the wonderful school district. I work part-time at the Wood County Health Department, specifically in the WIC program, where I have the privilege of working with the community on a larger scale, helping families by supporting them and their health and well-being. I have a passion for community work and supporting communities that I would like to instill into our children. I volunteer in my many facets, including at the elementary school in Port Edwards, at our church in Port Edwards, as well as working on coalition work at the county level. My husband not only works full-time, but he also is a volunteer firefighter for Port Edwards as well. I have decided to run as village trustee because I have a commitment to this community and the families that live here. I am open-minded and always ready to listen to both sides of the issue before making a decision. My work, coalition work, and volunteering has taught me a lot about thinking outside of the box and utilizing the things that we already have. I believe it is important to have an equal representation on our board of all stages of life that we have living in the community. It is equally as important to have a diverse group of individuals representing our village so that the board can hopefully work with each other with each other's strengths and be able to problem solve and brainstorm together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello,
Tiara?
my name is Tiara Grunden. I'm here today because I'm hoping to be reelected for the Village of Port Edwards trustee. My husband and I chose Port Edwards 17 years ago to raise our family. The connectedness and sense of community that my family has experienced has served us well. With that gratitude in mind, I ran and was elected for the village trustee 2 years ago. Serving the village of Port Edwards has been both challenging and gratifying. I do have previous experience working as a board member for Path Wisconsin, Inc., and also served on some child welfare committees around the state. I hope that this evening's events will be helpful in helping our village residents when we all go place our votes April 2nd.
John Bingham.
Good evening. My name is John Bingham. I'm seeking re-election to the Port Edwards Village Board. I feel I've served on a number of committees. During my past 2-year tenure, I've chaired the Streets Committee. I've served on the Finance and Human Resources Committee and the Public Safety Committee. I feel the board we currently have, and myself as a member, has been a dynamic board that has effected positive change in the village of Port Edwards. And for that reason, I wish to continue to serve the village of Port Edwards. I bring 30 years of managerial experience. I was one of the individuals that interviewed the new village administrator and recommended that person to the board. And so I want to be involved in the village of Port Edwards and keep doing the positive things that the current board is involved in. Thank you.
Sue Mitchell.
And thank you to the League for organizing the forum this evening and for giving us the opportunity to express our opinions to the public. I'm Sue Mitchell and running for a second term as trustee for the village of Port Edwards. The past 2 years gave me a very broad view of the functions of the village, and our board has a very strong committee system, and through all of those opportunities, we have collaborated as trustees, and we've also, or I at least, have learned, I think everyone has learned a lot about the fire and police departments and how they function, about public works and the very good and hardworking employees that we have employed at the village. Also, we've learned about finance and human resources, as John mentioned, recommending a new administrator and hiring that was also part of my responsibilities as well. And I've also learned a lot about the property that is here in Port Edwards that the village is responsible, or the board is responsible for managing. So the trustee experience, as well as my involvement and leadership in lots of other community organizations, such as 9 years on the Port Edwards School District School Board, has prepared me, I think, to serve another term. So thank you.
Okay. We'll now move on to the questions. The first question: what solutions would you suggest to resolve the current stalemate surrounding the DMI-controlled, formerly Domtar, Port Edwards mill site? And we'll start with Tiara.
Well, that's a tricky one. As trustees, we're kind of not in a position to say a whole lot based on that communication is going through the attorneys and DMI. So I'm afraid that if I try to address it very much, I will so eloquently step right in it. So go, John, you go.
John, it's your turn to make a decision.
It's my turn to step in it, is what she's saying. You know, it is a volatile issue. It's been going on even long before our three of us were on the current board, and it continues on to this time. And I think I do agree with Tiara that it's basically, unfortunately, in lawyers' hands, and that's the direction it's going. We're looking forward to resolution on that. That was one of my goals when I first got on the board. Didn't realize the depth of the problem, if you will. And I think our board and our leadership and our legal advice is leading us in a good direction. And that's basically all I can say at this particular time also, without compromising any confidential information.
And thank you, John and Tiara, for leading me to the next puddle. Yes, I would agree with both that it is pretty much in the hands of the attorneys, and there is ongoing work that is happening, but it is a very slow, tedious process and is not leading us to the end nearly as quickly as I'm sure everyone, including the whole village, would like. We would like to see that territory, that land, which is valuable, be able to be developed and used. There has been a piece that has been sold from it, the warehouse, The huge warehouse that is there was sold about a year ago. So that was one, I guess you could say, one piece that's taken care of, but there's still much more to be done.
Betsy.
Unlike these three, I really don't have a lot of experience working with DMI or even having the knowledge that they possess. But any kind of solution to work this out would be preferable. Unfortunately, because of it being in attorney's hands, I really don't have a lot of knowledge on this issue. So,
Okay. All right. We'll go on to the next question then. And this one we will be starting with John. Do you support the Port Edwards School District referendum? Why or why not?
So I woke up at 3 o'clock this morning and I thought, is that a legitimate question to ask a trustee? Because the school board is separate and the school is, it's part of the community. I support the community. The trustees, I think at a previous meeting we had the superintendent in and he spoke to it. I think that's an individual decision of council members. The council heard the presentation, and I really haven't made up my mind yet, to be honest with you. I want to see the facts and the figures, and the school is doing a good job of putting those out there. So I'm not trying to dance around that personally, because I don't know how I would vote on that on April 2nd, to be honest with you. I really don't see it as an issue directly associated with the village board.
Okay. Sue Mitchell?
Yes, I do definitely support the referendum. And I will say my reasoning is that I think it reflects on the values of the village of Port Edwards. And also, I think we need to have a really good school system in order to attract families and students. Actually, we've attracted a lot of students to the school district, or I should say that school board has done that. And I think we need a good functioning school district in order to have families want to be in Port Edwards. And because the state budget, I think, needs to provide more money to schools, and the only other possibility really is to pass a referendum in order to pay for things that the district has decided need to be done. So yes, I do support it.
Okay. Betsy Mancl?
I do support the school board referendum. The school district is one of the reasons why my husband and I chose Port Edwards. It always has it has the smaller classrooms, or the class sizes, I should say, along with good test scores. And we want to keep that going. Enrollment keeps going up, which is a great thing, but we need to be able to meet those needs of more students and then the teachers' needs as well. I think the benefits definitely outweigh the risks at this point. If we need to put money into something, I think it should be our education system for our children, not only just to pass tests in high school, but to pass tests and to be more prepared for life.
Okay, thank you. Tiara?
I'm voting yes on the referendum. If I understand it right, the way that the funding from the state is not keeping up with the increased enrollment. So I want to see small classroom sizes. I want to see the learning material provided as our kids need it. So I am all yes.
Okay, thank you. For the next round of questions, we'll begin with Sue Mitchell. What is your 5-year vision for the village of Port Edwards?
Good question. To have the DMI situation resolved. That'll be number one. To have an attractive downtown of Port Edwards. We are working on that this coming year, to have the street repaired and curb and gutter and so forth put in, and also have a building remodeled as well. and to have a splash pad present that will hopefully attract young families and give young families recreation and something to do with their young children. So yeah, I hope an even more inviting and invigorating village in 5 years, and that DMI has something attractive happening on that piece of property as well, or on various pieces of that property.
Betsy?
With Sue, I agree with the DMI solution, just being able to use what we have available to us, whether it's on the DMI property or in the downtown district where there are some vacant spots open to attract businesses. We're kind of a bedroom community. Not a lot of people are able to work in Port Edwards just because there's not a lot of options. To be able to bring in some kind of options would be nice for our families. I think it would keep families here in the area. And working with community partnership, getting people more involved in our community, running for village board, coming to the village board meetings, and just wanting to be 100% in and being supportive of that.
Okay. Tiara?
A couple things. DMI, obviously, that's a concern for our entire community, and we need to see some resolution there. The downtown rejuvenation, have talked to business owners, and that is, we need to present something that we can feel good about and draws business in. With that, we are investing in creating a boardroom that is going to encourage community getting involved. When the board meetings are televised, they really don't have all the information that as a citizen I would want. So one of the goals, we're creating a boardroom in Dr. Cronkite's old space, and it's going to be welcoming to the community, where you're going to be able to come and see and hear what's going on in the committees, and hopefully that will increase community involvement. The other thing, their development of property to create more revenue, generally speaking, and there are some potential things coming about.
Okay. John?
I'm a fiscal conservative, and I think we need to tighten our belt, and for the next 5 years, we have to maintain a very close watch on our budget, our property, and taxes and value. And I'm concerned in the long run that we're going to tighten ourselves, and we're doing everything not to. Trust me, the current board is. But I think it's good. And I think for small communities, we're not unique. We're not unique having a small high school. We're not unique being a small village. Everybody in the state is struggling, and we have to maintain fire protection. We just spent $500,000 on a new fire truck. We needed it. We have to have it. We have to have fire protection. We have a police force. We have to maintain that. We want to maintain that. And to the best of our service to provide to the residents of Port Edwards. So I think fiscally, I just want to make sure we look at everything we possibly can in order to stay level with what we're charging the residents, make sure our residents are getting a bang for their buck, but not buying a Cadillac, driving a really nice Chevrolet.
Okay. Thank you. Now for the next round of questions, we'll be beginning with Betsy again. What new business or activity do you feel might be beneficial for the village of Port Edwards?
Well, we have the splash pad. That's a great start, but how are we going to keep families there all day? Because when I know with my family, if I'm going to go to a splash pad, I want to spend a couple hours there. The downfall I see is we don't have a lot of restaurant services. We do have the one, but to have options that way to be able for families to buy sandwiches or have a pizza or something like that, even maybe delivered down there, that might be too much. But just making it more family-oriented. Restaurants are great. Even some kind of shopping would be great, but I'm not really sure we have the space for that, but also industrial, looking to see if we can get kind of a multiple complex for different job functions.
Okay.
Could you
Tiara.
repeat the question, please?
Sure. What new business or activity do you feel would be beneficial for the village of Port Edwards?
There is some potential that we have. There's just been a bid put out for village property to invite developers to have the discussion with us on potential possibilities. I'm coming from the perspective of somebody that I'm my dad's primary caretaker, and he lives in an assisted living. I'd be thrilled to pieces to have him in our village. So, and the jobs that could create could be pretty exciting. So when I hear things like that, that kind of perks my ear up, jobs. And people as they age in our community being able to stay in our community.
Okay. John?
I'm an outlier. I don't mind being a bedroom community. I think a bedroom community is one of the things I really like about Port Edwards. And I'm not looking for Microsoft to move in because we all know that's impossible. I would like to see the property that we currently have, we're debating on, like to see that taken over and utilized productively. But I don't think shopping is realistic. I don't think, and I'm not knocking my other candidates, but I can drive to Rapids. I can drive to Copp's grocery store in 5 minutes from my house in Port. So I don't need all those services. I love the bedroom atmosphere of Port Edwards. And I don't have any data to prove it, but I think the population likes the bedroom atmosphere of Port Edwards. My children are long gone, no offense to those that are sending their children to the school, and that's great. But I'm looking for a place to live with my wife and my dog. And I found it in Port Edwards.
Okay. Sue?
Good question. My first thought is activities, and I often think about that for families because I think we are a very attractive spot for families. And as Wood County and all of Wisconsin is aging, it's nice to have some younger families around. And I was thinking the splash pad is adding something for younger children. I don't see kids much more than 11 or 12, I don't think, playing in that. So I keep thinking we need something, and I'm thinking, well, we have baseball diamonds, and there are a lot of very active baseball teams that play there in Ripple Creek Park, which is really great too. Still, that doesn't answer everything, but when I think about soccer or I think about tennis, and we do have tennis courts and a pickleball net too, so that is a possibility, and probably more as much for adults as it would be for kids. I go back to what John said and the fact that we live so close to Rapids that I think probably teenagers who are ready to play in bigger pools are going to be coming to the Wisconsin Rapids Aquatic Center when that gets built. So once more, you're right, we're very close to other activities and lots of soccer leagues and things that are in Rapids that we don't have directly in Port. So that's kind of a roundabout answer to that question.
Okay. For the next round of questions, Tiara will start. What is one asset of the village of Port Edwards that will allow it to prosper in the future, and how do you propose to capitalize on this asset?
I don't think that I could say one asset. There are so many things about our village. I walk the walking trails. I walk the disc golf. Our community is our asset. That people know my dog. People know my son. People, that's our asset. Working that sense of community and bringing people into our meetings and pulling in people into the conversation. I'm not sure if I'm answering the question completely right, but that's what I see as our assets, there's many things that I love. The schools, which vote yes on the referendum.
Okay. John, if at any point people want me to repeat the question, I certainly can as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Vote yes.
What comes to mind is the quality of the workforce here. And it's the quality of the street. And I mean this seriously. I lived in Grand Rapids for 30-some years, and terrible plowing, terrible pickup. I come to Port Edwards, the crew is outstanding. And I'm not, they don't do anything, well, they do things special. They pick up brush, and the plowing, snow plowing is, I was just amazed. I didn't know people really knew how to plow like that, and how soon they did it. So our staff is one of our really strong assets. And that's why, when I say I love the bedroom community, I love the services. Port Edwards has great services. And how is that going to, I think that blossoms into when I'm talking to somebody and they say, well, where should I live? Port Edwards is a great community to live in. And I think the people are friendly, and things are getting done. We're held back by, we don't have all the money in the world. So your street might not get fixed this year, but we're going to get to it eventually. But we have to prioritize. We have to make decisions that not all residents might be happy with. But I really think getting things done in Port by the people that work there is a real positive.
Okay. Sue.
Ditto to what you've heard previous to me, but yes, I think services are very good in Port Edwards, and part of the reason is the very hardworking employees that we have, and I think it's also because it's a well-run village, not only administratively, but also I think our board does a good job too of managing and running the village. So I think all of that together is a very good ground, I guess, very grounded, or it's a very good basis, foundation maybe is what I'm looking for, to have a very good place to live and a very attractive place. So the river is a great asset in Port Edwards as well. And the hiking trails, the walking trails, the bicycle trails, is how we meet our neighbors and our friends, and so it's a good place. It's a good place.
Betsy.
I would say the number one asset would be the people. Not only have the others mentioned the hardworking people of the village, but just your neighbors. I mean, we get to know one another when we're out walking, when we're taking our kids to the parks, or when we're being involved in the community events. And if we can just make sure that we can get the diversity of those people to come and volunteer or be heard or put their input in. It is a great community. We couldn't be happier with the place that we've chose. And I think a lot of the reason why the people of the village work so hard is because we have relationships with these people. They're not just someone from the village just picking up your garbage. It's generally them, and they're working on the streets. So you get to have that personal relationship with everybody involved. I think the people are the assets to our community, and if we can just rally all together behind our village and really put forth an effort, if everybody puts in a little bit of effort, we can really make this village just great.
Good. All right. I think everybody had a chance at that question. We started with a 5-year, wondering what your 5-year goals might be. This question is, what is one problem that you see facing the village of Port Edwards in the next year, the next 12 months? And what solution or solutions would you propose? And let's say be able to present back at next year's candidates forum. A problem that's right up there in front that is solvable. And who gets John?
I knew it was my turn. I knew it was my turn. I thought you'd throw me a softball, but that wasn't it. And I was thinking, I'm going back through our board meetings over the last 2 years and thinking, there's problems with And we've solved a lot of problems as a board. I'm very proud of what's been accomplished since, and not just because of me, but as a member of the current board. So I'm stalling right now, trying to think of that one problem. I don't want to say DMI again. We want to resolve. We all know we want to resolve that. Every candidate or every person up here knows we want to resolve that. So that's kind of, you turn it over to the attorneys and you just write the check, and hopefully it gets resolved. I think, I hate to call it a problem, but we do have an aging workforce. And by that I mean they'll be retiring. And that's not really a problem. They're entitled to retire. But we're going to be replacing a lot of people, staff, over the next 2 years, 3 years. Our Director of Public Works is retiring, 40 years of experience. Again, that's going to be gone. We've got other qualified people, I'm sure, but you do lose something with that type of experience. So I would say personnel, staffing, continuing to staff. The Police and Fire Commission will be moving on a police chief announcement in the near future. So those are issues for the village.
Okay. Sue.
I'm going to pick something concrete, literally and figuratively, and talk about streets and potholes. Everybody experiences those every day. Probably we're bouncing through them. And the reason is, of course, that we are prioritizing, I think John mentioned that previously. So we will get those done, but we would definitely like to do them sooner rather than later, because we would hear fewer complaints if that happened. So my proposal for that is, or my hope for that, I should say, is that we get at least a 2% increase in the shared revenue from the state. That is a proposal that is in the present state of Wisconsin budget. How realistic that's going to be, I'm not sure. But I would like to see that, because I feel that actually all of the villages and towns and cities in the state of Wisconsin need that extra income for, it could be streets and roads, but it may be many other things that are a priority too, because that has been kept so low for so long that I really think it's time to raise the amount, because my philosophy is that when that money is spent locally, in other words, when that tax money that we have paid as taxpayers comes back to our area, we are better able to handle the issues that local government and local people have, rather than having it dispensed from the state capital. So that would be my proposal and my hope.
Well, we'll check in with you next year, so see how that went.
And we will not be up for re-election next year, so I'm glad somebody else will get to answer that one.
Let's see, Betsy.
Well, they both took really good ones. Now I'm kind of wondering. I'd have to go along with John, the personnel. How do we attract people to come to our community and work in our community for 40 years instead of just, okay, I'll work here for a couple years, wait for something better, and then move on with life? Because you tend to lose the experience that these people have knowledge, and then you kind of have to start over, which can be hard. And then you also lose that community member, that family potentially. So trying to make it an attractive community to come and stay for years, not just a temporary, a stepping stone.
Tara.
I don't know if I am looking at it as much as a problem to be addressed in the next 12 months as an opportunity to increase revenue. And that would be potentially by utilizing property that the village may have for sale for development in a way that can be friendly to the surrounding properties and that would be received well. And DMI, we've got to get some resolve and see what we can do about getting the revenue out of that property that we need.
Okay. And this will be the last question before the final closing statements. And try to make it as personal as possible. What do you feel makes you uniquely qualified for this position? Because there will be only 3 of them open. And we will start with Sue, I believe.
I would say, first of all, probably my 2 years' experience that I have now, or almost 2 years, it will be in April. Because of the exposure and because we have rotated through committees and been chair of a committee, that experience, I think, adds greatly to the capabilities of managing what comes before whatever committee we're on. And it helps then also to recognize what citizens are concerned about and listening. So I think my ability to do that, I have also been president of groups and been members of other organizations. So I think that contributes to, I think I already mentioned that I'd been on the school board. So being a part of a board, I think, also adds to your skills. So I think it's something that continues to develop, and I hope to serve another term.
Okay, thank you. Betsy.
I wouldn't really say unique, I guess, but why I think I'm qualified or why I'm kind of putting in for this is because I'm trying to represent a generation that typically is staying out of community involvement in our area as well, more so than in the bigger cities. I just feel like I don't have quite as much experience as these 3 on the board level or in life, but I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing either. I can bring a different perspective than they can because I do have little ones at home, and then kind of just take that spin on it. That sometimes we're looking at things differently, but just because we're looking at things differently doesn't mean we can't resolve it or come to terms with it. A lot of my work at the county has to do with health and wellness of families, not only families, but the larger public in Wood County. So sitting in a lot of those types of meetings and trainings can really, I think I can benefit the village from bringing that knowledge to the village board.
Okay. Tiara.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. What makes you think you are uniquely qualified for one of these 3 open positions?
I'm kind of pesty, and it served me well. And I push and ask the questions, and if I don't get the answers, ask them again, and go back and ask them again. That would be one part. I thought I felt an energy. And my being in the community, I really enjoy people. I love talking to people. I love, if you're at the end of your driveway, I'm not likely going to walk by without saying, hello, how are you? Or what do you think about what we're doing? Are we serving you well? I think that's it. That's my time in the community. You know, I'm with my son at all of his sporting events and sitting around and sharing with our neighbors and friends and hearing what's going on, and I just love it. And I would like the opportunity to continue doing it.
Okay. John.
I bring 30 years of managerial experience to the board. So I've hired people, and I've chaired meetings, and we've done all of that. And that doesn't mean I'm better than anybody else, but I've got that experience. I think Betsy just said that the 3 of us are old, but I'm not sure. No, I'm kidding. As President Zerflu would attest, I'm not a yes man. I'm outvoted many times, but I vote what I think the residents of Port Edwards are looking for. And I could be wrong, but I vote in the best interest of the residents. I get phone calls saying, yes, glad you voted that way, but that's not a large number of people. And I also respond to people in the community. I get phone calls, why isn't the grass cut in the cemetery? When I was chair of that, Streets and Infrastructure and Recreation and Cemetery, that's the name of that committee. And I address it. And I talked to the street superintendent, and I have the ability to do that and the time to do that. And so I do bring experience. I do bring a strong desire to serve. That's the reason I ran. What can I do to give back to Port Edwards? And it's up to the voters to decide, but I want to serve the voters of Port Edwards.
Thank you. And now for the closing statements, up to 2 minutes. And I believe, did I get everybody? I did. You all had a chance at that question? Okay. Closing starts with Betsy Mancl.
All right. I would like to again thank the League of Women Voters and for all the individuals working here tonight to make our community members at home be able to see, put names to the faces and be able to hear what our thoughts are on this. I would also like to thank Sue, John, and Tiana for working and wanting to continue to work to support our village. I hear it's not an easy job, and for you to be able to willingly do it again, that says a lot about your commitment and your heart to our community. I ask for your vote on April 2nd so that I can be a part of the village board. I think that I can bring a fresh perspective, and my hope is to inspire the younger generations to be involved in the community. Thank you.
Tiara Grunden.
I did not prepare something so eloquent. Well done. I have enjoyed the work and the time that I've had on the board. I really have enjoyed meeting more people and being a place that somebody can call. I have enjoyed being a part of moving us towards something positive. And I think we are moving towards something positive. There's so many great things. I think that I'm really good at building relationships, and I think that I'm really good at working against the grain in adverse circumstances. The bottom line that is frustrating for me is we cannot please everyone. And there's going to be circumstances that might be good for the village as a whole that may not be good for or be well received by the individual. I love getting phone calls. I loved being pulled aside on the street. I think I've done a very good job. I think my experience as a board member has served me well in working with our village board, and I would like to have your vote. And if I don't have your vote, I will be at the meetings as I was before I was elected.
Thank you. John Bingham.
Well, first of all, I'm very happy to see that there's just not 3 of us up here, because I think that says a lot about the village of Port Edwards. Betsy's interest in the village board, I commend her on that. And I think that's good. You know, we don't have to rest on, we're accountable, and every board member is. And I do think, you know, we have a quality board, but we should be challenged all the time. And I think that's a positive. I just want to clarify, and I'm not trying to bail on the school referendum question, but the state of Wisconsin does a poor job of financing small rural school districts. And I'm hoping with Tony Evers, and that's not a political statement, but I think Tony Evers is trying to put more money into education than the previous governor, and hopefully there's some resolution in the future. We can't continue to go to the property owner and ask for more. So that's why I'm a little looking at, I coach and teach at Assumption. They operate on a string. I don't know if Port Edwards is operating on a string yet. And so I've got to look at the data provided by the superintendent and decide, is this legitimate? Or are they going to be back in 2 years for another referendum? At some point, the school district has to make decisions. And I guess I'm not against the school district or the school itself, but I'm looking at alternatives to that referendum, and I may vote for it. I just have to get more information. Thank you.
Sue Mitchell.
And thank you to the League and for bringing us here to participate in this forum. It was very informative for me as well, and hopefully it was for all of you listening at home and here in the studio audience. I am good at listening to all sides of issues and coming to a decision that I think supports what we need to do for the village. So that is what I would really like to continue to bring to the board, and I hope that you will vote for me to do that. I have enjoyed my 2 years so far, obviously, or I wouldn't be up here again thinking about another 2-year term. So I think I could do that well. I definitely support a very strong village board, and I think we have had that and will continue into the future. We not only have a strong board, but our committees are very strong and work very hard too. And that, I think, helps us figure out what we need to do for the village. Sorry, I keep losing my voice tonight. So I hope that you will either vote early or come to the fire department on April the 2nd and vote that day. So I would appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This concludes the first part of our forum this evening. And I think on behalf of all of the members of the League of Women Voters of Wisconsin, the Wisconsin Rapids area, we want to thank you for, again, putting yourselves out there and running for public office. This is what citizenship is all about. So thank you very much. And a round of applause.
Tiara.
In just a few moments, we will be starting the second portion of the candidates forum, in which the candidates running for the town of Saratoga, both the chairman and the supervisors, will have their opportunity to answer questions. If you're watching us on television right now, keep in mind that you can call in at 423-0441 with any questions you may have for the Saratoga candidates. Thank you again.